I got
That's okay, we're good. I just want to make sure I keep track, right, that's all.
Okay.
All right, we will now, come out of recess and, back into the regular meeting. Mr. Hicks, he had another amendment he wants to propose.
I do, and like I said, I'm just prefacing these all from feedback I've been getting from different supervisors about multiple concerns they have with the budget. Some people have different ones, some people are very adamant about certain ones, and I'm just trying to address them all so we can come to, we can coalesce around one conclusion. My next one is to, in the proposed budget, remove the supervisor's increase in salaries of $2,500. So $2,500 times 17 is a $42,500 reduction, which will then create a $42,500 reduction in the tax levy. So instead of taking a 12 3/4% increase, which is in the budget for all supervisors, my amendment says to make it 0.
Okay.
Second.
Dr. Bennett, we have a second. Dan Hogan, Mr. Shaw. Anybody else had a hand up? See anybody else out there? Supervisor Ward? Okay. All right, discussion, please. Where would we like to start? Anyone?
Cassie.
Okay. Cassie, sorry.
I don't think it's necessary that, it's kind of hard to vote on our own raises. Not all of us are retired. Not all of us collect pensions. Not all of us live nearby. So it is only fair that there is something just like there is for everybody else. Because in reality, I think you could get more people to run for the position if it was worth a little bit more. I'm not looking for a huge raise, but I do think that if you want younger people to be involved, people that haven't been there for 12 years to be involved, that the job does need to pay a little bit more. I'm not saying, it has to be huge, but I think you guys need to make a logical decision on whatever. Like in my town, we try and do it whatever random percentage it is that we give the town. We try and do all elected officials the same thing because it's only fair so they get, it's a thankless job. Let's be honest.
Thank you. James?
I agree with Cassie. I don't need a 12.3% increase, but I think there's a margin there that we can all agree on.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Okay, so the amendment will read how, Matt? Do you want that to read?
We reduced the appropriation by $42,500 in supervisor salaries and reduced the levy by $42,500 levy increase, which I don't, off the top of my head, know what that brings it down to.
Chairman?
Yes.
Can I amend that? Can I make a motion to amend that?
Sure.
I'd like to amend that to half of what Max wants to reduce it.
Okay. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, LeBron seconds it, Mr. Fisher seconds it, Mr. Scully seconds it, Cassie seconds it. Okay, discussion on that. Yeah.
So what would be the percentage increase for the supervisor's salary?
I think it's 6.15.
Wow, okay. What more is it you're doing?
I got 6.37.
What was it?
6.37.
Is that what it is?
It's not all smart.
Matt?
Again, I think I've done it, and I've heard other supervisors rail against Washington voting themselves raises and Albany voting themselves raises. And, if in the past we've, given 2% to employees and we've taken 2%, I see some consistency there. But to do this number this year, I think is extreme. And I think really we should really make a statement by saying we should not take an increase at all. Because by taking this increase, even though it changes the tax levy by just a little bit, we're telling our taxpayers we'd rather reduce your taxes by a fraction than take money ourselves. Simple as that.
Okay. All right. So,
We're voting on cutting it in half, cutting that reduction.
Cassie had her hand up.
Cassie, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna come back again. I was just gonna also say that, you know, I've talked to people in my town and other towns and trying to get people more involved. And, you know, people that have jobs or even people that have to do childcare or whatever, you know, it has to be a decent amount of money to do this job because we're limiting it really down to people that are retired or have well-paying jobs or are self-employed and get nothing. Either way, I mean, I just need to think we have to be paying attention and making it a decent salary so we have a bigger pool of people to pick from. Not necessarily because I think I need a raise, but I think we need to send a message. We want to have more people get involved.
Any other comments or discussion?
So we are voting on Mr. Griffith's amendment here.
Yes.
Can I request a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Yep, we'll do a roll call. Okay. John, sorry. John,
I'm sorry I wasn't here. Could I hear the amendment again?
yes, you may.
So the original proposal was to remove the $42,500 appropriation for increases to supervisor salary. That was then further amended by Mr. Griffith and seconded to cut the $42,000, $42,500 by 1/2 of that amount. So that is what you're voting on now,
Second.
to cut that appropriation by that, I don't do math, the half of the $42,500.
So basically that the 21,000 is divided amongst the 17 supervisors. So it was what, $1,250 a piece? $1,250 each for each
Yes.
town.
Okay, John, did that answer your question? Okay. All right, we were all set.
Mr. Hanky,
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler,
Yes,
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
No.
Mr. Hall,
Yes?
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Hicks,
No.
Mr. Ward,
No.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Half,
No.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Skelly,
Yes.
Mr. Hogan,
No.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clary. Yes. Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Rosell.
No, I can't.
No.
It's gonna be close.
Yeah.
Can I just confirm Mr. Campbell's vote?
I vote yes.
Right, okay. The amendment is defeated, 2,018 yes, 2,242 no.
So now we're back to discussion on the original amendment, which was to cut the appropriation by the entire $42,500.
Okay, so we had a motion on that. We're back to discussion on that. Any further discussion? We'll be doing a roll call on this one also. Okay, and I see no discussion on the screen either. So we do a roll call, please.
So to be clear, we're voting on Matt's original amendment.
Yes.
A yes vote on this amendment will remove the appropriation of $42,500 as originally proposed by Mr. Hicks.
Thank you.
Mr. Hanky,
No.
Mrs. Mrs. Spedler,
No.
Mr. Ferguson,
No.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
No.
Mr. Fisher,
No.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Haff,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Skelly,
No.
Mr. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
No.
Mrs. Clary. No. Mr. Griffith,
No.
Mr. Rozell,
Yes.
amendment is adopted, 2,400 yes, 1,812 no.
Okay, so now we go to Amendment 3.
I want to say how foolish and naive I was, because I thought those would be the two easy ones. Because this one is more intricate, networked, and complicated. And again, I'll have to rely upon the treasurer and council to make sure that I'm staying between the guardrails as we go forward on this. It is extremely similar to the discussion we had last week. And though I have an amendment that I believe could be offered in open session, I think I need to explain it in closed session due to the fact that it's part of the exempt salary schedule and the stepping grade schedule, which will have an impact on collective bargaining under the Taylor law. So before I offer the next one, I think I need to ask to go into executive session first. On approval.
All right, so we'll start from the beginning. You never have, you never have to go into executive session for any purpose. You're allowed to go into executive session for several purposes, one of which is to discuss collective negotiations under the Taylor law, negotiations with your union. One is to discuss the individual hiring, firing, compensation of an individual person. So if we're talking about our negotiating strategy vis-a-vis the open contracts we have in the Taylor law, that would be, in my legal opinion, a permissible reason to go into executive session, as long as discussions were limited to that purpose.
Well, I made the motion, I've got a second.
Okay. Dave, I have a question. Are we gonna talk about non-union salaries in this?
He just said no. But that's specific to one individual.
If those discussions lead to an impact on collective bargaining, which I believe is what we did last Thursday in executive session, I think it would be appropriate.
If you intend to tie those together or intend to talk about the entire pool of money that's available for compensation in that context, then you're talking about the pool of money that could be available to compensate those folks that are under collective bargaining, and I think you can do that. However, if you're just saying this is what we're going to give the non-union people, then no.
I intend to
That's
do
not
that.
an individual person. If they're tied together.
I used last week as a precedent.
Right. And that's what we did last week. We tied those two things together. So in essence, you're talking about the union's compensation, which will then I'm not saying it's going to, but since they're interconnected, we're going to talk about the union, the open union contracts we have. There's clearly one that's been settled, and you have a resolution in front of you, so you know what that says. But for the ones that are not yet settled, you can talk about that subject in executive session.
Okay. So knowing that's what we're gonna be doing, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion before we vote? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. And we'll give the gentleman in the back an opportunity to go into executive session